I'm sure that you've heard of the American fast food chain KFC, but did you know that in Quebec, KFC is PFK? PFK stands for Poulet Frit de Kentucky, French for Kentucky Fried Chicken. But in France, you'll see KFC, not PFK. Likewise, in Quebec, stop signs say arrêt, while in France, they say stop. But why is this? Let's find out. What we now call Quebec province was colonized by the French Empire in the 1600s as part of New France. However, in 1763, the British drove the French from Quebec in the 7 Years' War, making them a British colony. During the American Revolution, Quebec, along with the rest of the modern Canadian East Coast, would stay British as the United States was founded in the South. They would stay this way for the next few decades, and more British, or Anglophones, moved into Quebec, especially Montreal, and turned the old French settlers, or Francophones, into what seemed like second-class citizens. Quebec would join the new Dominion of Canada as a province, and it remains that way until today. So why does the province of Quebec at times seem more French than France? Well, while the British had tried hard to make the Francophones second-class citizens, the Quebecers silently resisted, engaged in what is now known as the Revenge of the Cradle. The Francophones would both lean hard into French culture and manage to outbreed the Anglophones, and by the mid-20th century had become the majority. Panicking, the Anglophones started to leave, increasing the proportion of Francophones even more. This culminated in 1980 and 1995, where referendums were held to decide whether Quebec should even be part of Canada. Both were narrowly voted down, and ever since, most Quebecers recognize the benefits of being a province. Francophone Quebecers derive their very identity from being non-Anglophone and take great pride in it. This has led to laws being passed to encourage the use of the French language over English, which is why KFC was deemed to be too English and asked to change to the French PFK. I think this is actually understandable for the most part, and I sympathize with the Quebecers. I mean, if you look at a map, Quebec is the last standing place in North America where the majority does speak French. I think a big fear of Quebecers is turning into Louisiana, once part of New France, but today French in name only, hence the many laws designed to protect the French language in Quebec. I was also curious, where else in the world do we see this same quote-unquote Quebec syndrome? I think that Northern Ireland is actually a prime example. Unionists who advocate for, union with the United Kingdom derive much of their identity from not being Irish, which has caused some in Northern Ireland to feel more British than the British, often putting up rows and rows and rows of Union Jacks, something that is not commonly seen in England or Scotland. Whether this is a good thing or not is subjective. In the case of Quebec, I personally think it's fine, as nobody is being harmed if KFC has to rebrand as PFK, or Starbucks has to rebrand as Cafe Starbucks. But in the case of Northern Ireland, some very real violence has been the outcome of this out-of-control nationalism from both Unionists and Republicans, which is obviously not beneficial to anyone. Well, that's my take on the Quebec syndrome. See you next time.